warm welcome. You're watching We the People. I'm Rishika Barua. Lakshadweep has made international headlines. First, it was the tourism promo by none other than Prime Minister Narendra Modi, and then the rather unwanted controversy with the Maldives. But the Chalo Lakshadweep social media splash has left out a rather important issue, the one of environmental challenges associated with rampant development of these fragile islands. With an area of 32 square kilometers, that's it, 32 square kilometers, Lakshadweep has 10 inhabited islands, 17 uninhabited islands, and there are 4 newly formed islands, while there are 5 submerged reefs. So this is broadly the ecology of Lakshadweep. Among the inhabited islands, 5 of them, only 5 of them, are actively used for tourism purposes, which is still a very fledgling industry as far as these islands are concerned. So tourism is not bread and butter for the people of Lakshadweep. Fishing, coconut cultivation, etc. are primary sources of livelihood for the approximately 64,000 people who live there. Now, many fear that the anticipated tourist influx will adversely affect the island's already fragile ecosystem. Just like the Maldives, global warming, changes in the marine ecosystem, flooding, erosion, a rise in the sea water are already hurting the Lakshadweep Islands. These are already issues, climate impact issues that any island is facing at the moment. Measures, therefore, especially in a place like Lakshadweep, need to be taken in order to control the local land pollution. Curbs have to be imposed on deep sea fishing, coral mining, in order to be able to mitigate the erosion of the island's beaches. But as compared to the Maldives, the Lakshadweep is safe, at least for the moment, because the tourist trade has not expanded there yet. But after this recent publicity episode, the trend has begun. Lakshadweep is in the spotlight with celebrities, ministers, everyone on social media inviting everyone else to visit the island without any disclaimers. The bookings have tripled, with prominent platforms like Make My Trip reporting a 3,400% increase in tourist searches for Lakshadweep. But in order to sustain the frenzy, Lakshadweep tourism infrastructure will have to grow by leaps and bounds. Only 10 of the 36 islands, remember, are habited. This is where people actually go. The other islands are completely untouched. There are no direct flights to Lakshadweep. Even entry for Indian tourists, for you and me, requires a permit given the fragility of the islands. Internet connectivity is sparse, needless to say. The Ministry of Tourism, Government of India data says that there are only about 150 hotel rooms on land. The Tata Group now plans to set up 2 Taj resorts by 2026. There are all kinds of expansion plans to bolster air connectivity to the islands. So while Chalo Lakshadweep is the flavor of the season, tonight on We the People, we ask, can the pristine beaches, the coral reefs, survive the onslaught of people? What will become of Lakshadweep if we all decide to go there? Can we all even go there? And therefore, do we need to look before we leap towards Lakshadweep? To put this entire story into a context and perspective, joining me this evening, we have Mohammad Faisal. He is the Member of Parliament from Lakshadweep. We have Dr. Farooq Khan. He's the former administrator of Lakshadweep. We have Professor Anjal Prakash. He's an associate professor with the Institute of Public Policy, the Indian School of Business. We have Prahlad Kakkar, who is an ad guru, as we all know him, but he's also somebody who's pioneered in starting the first scuba diving setup in the Lakshadweep. He's a veteran as far as Lakshadweep is concerned. And we have Vimlendu Jha, who's a prominent environmentalist, no stranger here on NDTV. So thank you all very much for being with us on this very, very important show. I want to begin by asking you, Mr. Faisal, you're the Member of Parliament from Lakshadweep. How do you look at this entire media frenzy, social media frenzy, Prime Minister walking the beaches, all of this, encouraging people to come to Lakshadweep? How do you look at this entire frenzied narrative in a certain sense, given how fragile the ecology and the ecosystem in Lakshadweep actually is?
It's a very good question you've asked me. You cannot imagine a Juhu beach type of tourism in Lakshadweep or a Goa type of tourism in Lakshadweep. What we envisage the tourism when we say in Lakshadweep is totally a controlled way of tourism. Controlled means so we have declared a carrying capacity for any person to come into Lakshadweep, that how many tourists can be accommodated at a given point of time in a day, how many tourists can arrive. This is a declared and accounted thing as far as Lakshadweep tourism is concerned. Secondly, the tourists who are coming to Lakshadweep has to, give their concern toward our environment because, the Lakshadweep is formed of corals. Coral is the lifeline of our Lakshadweep. And you must be aware that evolution must have taken to form this government by unfolding such corals, and it is purely formed from the corals. So it is very sensitive and ecologically very fragile. Keeping that into mind, a Supreme Court committee, a Supreme Court of Constituted Committee, Justice Ravindran Commission, they have outlined any sort of development to happen in Lakshadweep, which is named as Integrated Island Management Plan, IIMP. This IIMP is the broader outline or a Bible, you can say, for any that matter to get for the development of tourism, for constructing the building, for building roads, for building, jetties, breakwaters, eastern side jetties. All sort of development is envisaged in that report, which is widely accepted by Government of India. The Environment Ministry have accepted it. And with this outline only, one can do any sort of development in Lakshadweep. As far as tourism is concerned, we are very sensitive on it, but we want tourism to develop, and we are looking for a tourism destination as a high-end and low-volume tourism. Why it is high-end, low-volume? Because the water scarcity, which we have, the groundwater facility is very limited, and the groundwater is for the people living here. And if any resort developer, any investor would like to come and invest and develop a tourist resort, he must have his own plans to have desalination plant purifying seawater into the potable water. Second is the waste management plants and treatment plants. Third is the electricity. They should have their own means of electricity. So these are all the things when you contribute towards it is a high investment. And on the other hand, to meet up these investment, they cannot have extra rooms beyond the carrying capacity. So obviously the carrying capacity is declared for each island. So within that only they have to do it. So obviously to meet up the initial investment and the receivables from the tourist arrival, the cost need to be on the higher side. So obviously it will be a high-end people coming and a low volume of footing as far as Lakshadweep is concerned.
It's interesting because what you're essentially laying out is all of the disclaimers about Lakshadweep that is missing from the kind of frenzied narrative that we're seeing online. Chalo Lakshadweep does sound like a fantastic movement, and by all means there should be development and tourism in Lakshadweep, but not at the cost of the island itself. I want to very quickly get in a perspective from Prahlad Kakkar. Prahlad Kakkar, we were speaking earlier and you were talking about how it's all very good, the attention that Lakshadweep is getting, but it's very problematic when it comes as a sort of no-holds-barred narrative, as if to say these islands have just been discovered and we should all just plan our next holiday there. It's a lot more complicated than that, isn't it?
Much more, because they are so fragile. And the carrying capacity, as Sir just said just now, is very, very necessary. You can't load the island with lots of outsiders because it will affect the ecology and the livelihood of the people. I mean, they might earn money, but what's the point of earning money if the environment is destroyed? So, the islands need infrastructure. There's no question about it. When we started our diving school there in 92, 93, there was nothing. We had to go by fishing boat from the airport to the island. There was very little connectivity. It was very, very hard for us to get tickets because there was one plane that will fly to Agatti with 14 seats and it was catering to the entire number of islands, and it was very, very impractical. So today, we are sitting with Air India already flying there, but the airport cannot take jets. It's too short a runway. It can only take ATR. And the maximum capacity of an ATR is about 50 to 54 seats. So if you're going to develop the island like the way Niti Aayog has looked at it, see, Niti Aayog has jumped the ship because they have said that the carrying capacity of the island is about 200 people per island or 300 people per island. And they've also recommended water bungalows like Maldives. But you must remember one thing, that Lakshadweep is in the heart of the monsoons. Whereas Maldives escapes the brunt of the monsoons. So you can only put in water bungalows on the leeward side of the island and not on the windward side. Because during the monsoon, it's really, really rough. I have a wooden jetty on my on Kadmat Island, and every time we used to come back from for the season to start, we had to rebuild the jetty because it was destroyed by the monsoon.
Right.
So the fact is that we do need infrastructure. We do need to open up the islands because I think it's necessary for the islanders themselves to see what the rest of the world is like.
Yes.
And to learn from that.
Yes.
And it will help them a lot in terms of job availability, PR. It's a tremendous opportunity.
Okay. Dr. Farooq Khan, very quickly, if I can just come to you. Do you believe that this entire publicity that the Lakshadweep has got, do you believe it to be a blessing, or do you think that it's not necessarily such a good thing? How do you look at it?
No, I would convey my personal thanks to the Honorable Prime Minister for having touched the islands and given the required boost to the Lakshadweep, which was hardly known to us mainlanders. Having said so, I would touch on certain points which have been raised. One is the ecology, the second is the carrying capacity, and the third is care for environment there. Like our Member Parliament from Lakshadweep, Mr. Faisal said that under the guidelines given by Honorable Supreme Court of India, we have a definite plan.
Yes.
Integrated plan for the island development. And going by that plan, when in 2016, Honorable Prime Minister declared that 10 of the islands would be 10 islands all over India at various places would be developed. Then Lakshadweep was also selected among those 10, one of the 10.
Okay.
Thereafter, the Niti Aayog was brought in. Niti Aayog employed an organization, and with that organization, some very respected institutions of India, like NCESS, National Center for Earth Sciences and Study. They were engaged, and they did a marvelous exercise. I incidentally was at that time there, and they decided as to on which island and in which lagoon how many people at one time can go.
Okay,
it is not 200 per island. Probably one island is having only about 180, the other is having about 240.
That's the question. Professor Anjal Prakash, how do we agree on these numbers? What is going to be the gold standard as far as deciding development in Lakshadweep is concerned? Because this is not a question of 20 people extra here and there. This is the question of the survivability of these islands.
Yeah, thank you so much. See, Lakshadweep is a poster child of what vulnerability is going to be for our islands. And these are all small islands, which is not only for Lakshadweep, but also Maldives and other similar islands that is facing an existential crisis under the climate change scenario.
Yes.
Now we are talking about 1.5 degree warming world, which was the end of century target that has been advanced now. We already reached 1.4 degree warming world, and that means that the these islands actually in the same rate in which world is warming, these islands will disappear from the map by the climate models are saying by end of the century, but I am seeing that it's much more advanced now, looking at the way in which warming is happening. So the entire discussion which is happening, and we should actually Thank God that Lakshadweep has not gone Maldives way
Yes.
so far.
Yes.
And we must learn what Maldives has done, and we should learn from them. Let me just point out a couple of points from here. One is about the sea level rise, which is actually threatening Maldives, entire land and existence on
Yes.
that part. The models are suggesting for Lakshadweep is about 0.4 to 0.9 millimeter per year, which is the rise in sea level, which is going.
Yeah.
About 80% of Lakshadweep anyway, the present rate is going to be underwater
Right.
by end of century. So that's one. The second part is about the waste management. We already know what Maldives have done.
Yes.
What the pictures that you see of Maldives are very different than if you actually visit them. They
Sure.
have an entire land area which is actually put on for waste, which is not been actually segregated.
Don't believe everything you see in the pictures.
Exactly.
And fact check the pictures that you see of the Lakshadweep as well, because there's been a lot of controversy around that also.
Yes. Let's come to water issue. 97% of Maldives actually is dependent on the rainwater because the groundwater resource totally declined.
Yes.
So these are the warning signals for us.
These are the red flags. I think, the purpose of this show was to talk about the other side of the story as well. That Chalo Lakshadweep is not some revolutionary movement. It needs to come with terms, conditions, disclaimers, some of which we've hoped to set out. Vimlendu Jha is also with us, but I have a young audience here with me in the studios, Vimlendu, and they have a lot of questions regarding this entire Chalo Lakshadweep movement. Also, young university students from Gurugram. Very quickly, your questions.
मेरा नाम अभिषेक है और मेरा जैसे कि एक प्रधानमंत्री जी गए, उन्होंने एक कुछ भी नहीं, सिर्फ पिक्चर्स अपलोड के एक मूवमेंट स्टार्ट हो गया और भारत के सभी लोगों ने उसको सपोर्ट किया। तो वो एक तरीके से बहुत अच्छा है कि मतलब हम लोग सबसे पहले भारत भ्रमण करें और भारत का हमें भ्रमण करना भी चाहिए, क्योंकि हम जब भारत भ्रमण करेंगे। लेकिन मेरा एक क्वेश्चन इसमें ये है कि जब हम इस तरीके से जाएंगे, ज्यादातर लोग जाएंगे, तो सरकार ने क्या पहले से वो प्लान कर रखा है कि मतलब
गुड। सो हैज इट ऑल बीन प्री प्लान्ड? सो इफ पीपल आर गोइंग टू गो टू लक्षद्वीप इन लार्ज नंबर्स, डू वी हैव अ प्लान इन प्लेस टू मिटिगेट द क्राइसिस? Anyone else? Yeah.
Hello, I'm Bhumi Bharti. Since the connectivity to Lakshadweep is very low, so what is the government planning to do now?
Bolster connectivity, there's a plan. Yes, very quickly.
Why Lakshadweep is not made tourist destination like Maldives?
Why has it not been made? I think that's the whole point. Okay, I think the interesting question, Vimlendu Jha, that's arisen here is that have we already thought about all the things that we're talking about when we say Chalo Lakshadweep? Is there a plan of action in place to mitigate the disaster waiting to happen if people go there in very large numbers, or if there is, God forbid, rampant unchecked development?
Absolutely not. And the thing is that why talk just about Lakshadweep right now and its ecological vulnerability? We've seen how tourism has taken place in our country. In last 1 year, we've seen the kind of crisis or the kind of disaster that we've actually brought into the Himalayas in just last 1 year, and forget about in last 1 decade, the kind of disaster that we've seen. So of course, indeed, everyone wanted to go to the Himalayas, everyone wants to go to Shimla, everyone wants to go to fancy places, but in the process of developing these spaces as destinations of tourism or destinations of development, we've actually destroyed, dilapidated, almost decimated the ecology of these areas. And exactly that's what we're actually doing in Lakshadweep by design. Every speaker right now has talked about the carrying capacity. Of course, we think that Maldives and Lakshadweep are the same. They are not the same. As you know, the number of islands that Maldives has are too many. Lakshadweep has limited number of islands. 70% of Lakshadweep actually islands are actually forested. So when you're looking at building these 5-star and 7-star vegetarian and all kinds of restaurants and hotels, are we doing it for those 64,000 people? Because of course the idea or the term that we give to all of this is development, but in reality, this is all greed and destruction by design, and that needs to be checked.
Well,
of course, it looks very great.
Very strong words. I want to give the final word to Prahlad Kakkar, though, as someone who is, like I said, who actually has skin in the game as far as Lakshadweep is concerned. Prahlad Kakkar, would you agree that all of this is very welcome, the Look Lakshadweep, Chalo Lakshadweep program, but there are many terms and conditions. Do you actually look at all of this as a good thing, or do you think that it is very problematic and could be the beginning of the end of the islands if this is not done correctly?
See, we've been there from the 90s, and we were very careful as to who we wanted to come onto the island because there were very limited facilities at that time. And we were hoping that the government would actually come in and start putting in some infrastructure so that the connectivity at least is easy.
Yes.
Because there are certain islands which are completely not connected, not properly.
Right.
So, the Prime Minister's initiative, I think, is a damn good initiative because it's put the islands in the map,
Yes.
even if it's political. But the fact is that you cannot go to the island unless you have a room. So, if your carrying capacity is 80 people or 100 people, then if those are booked out, then you can't go. And right now, the carrying capacity of the island is so little that that Lakshadweep is booked out till April.
Yes.
So anyway, all the people who wanted to go till April cannot go there because right now only the infrastructure exists for that many people.
All right.
And it's a schlep, getting there from getting from Cochin to Agati, from Agati to the island.
Yes.
So that needs to be put into place.
Okay,
And if
I
you can
think-
put that into place, then I think the islands have a great future because they will be like a jewel in our crown.
All right.
Because-
Well, one sincerely hopes that the future is that Lakshadweep remains that jewel in the crown, Prahlad Kakkar, that you've talked about. Thank you all very much for joining us. We're completely out of time. But while we want everyone to go to Lakshadweep to see our own country, remember there is always a sustainable way to do it. And one sincerely hopes that the development of Lakshadweep, in whichever form it happens, is sustainable so that they are indeed the jewel on the crown and this is not the beginning of the end for those lovely islands. Thank you all very much for joining us in this edition of We the People.